Welcome back to Levity Books. My name is Liam and I hope you're reading well. So I've been reading books from Germany for the last month and a half, although I've been reviewing other books, and I'm going to start a video series now on 20th century German literature. This is a personal project for me to explore through literature the rise of Nazi Germany through the social values shown in the literature of Germany. I was going to make this a wrap-up, but I've decided to look at each book individually so I can talk about it more easily, you can follow more easily and choose to look at what you like, and at the end we can make a nice wrap-up and really follow what I have said throughout this series. More precisely, I'm only looking at works listed in Harold Bloom's Western Canon, The Chaotic Age for Germany, so we're talking about the best works of German literature from the 1900s. Some of these works were written and published outside of Germany, but their language means that they were widely read within Germany at this time. I'm beginning this series with 4 books, the first of which I'm going to talk about in this video because it forms the central claim for the whole project and the perspective which I'll be applying to all subsequent books. The first 4 books of this series are The Eclipse of Reason by Max Horkheimer, The Sonnets to Orpheus by Rainer Maria Rilke, The Trial by Franz Kafka, and Narcissus and Goldmund by Hermann Hesse. So I'll be trying to identify unifying themes and higher concepts that really define what German culture is and what relevance there might have had to the rise of Nazi Germany, just from a literary perspective. Let me tell you about the first book because it will make way more sense. The Eclipse of Reason is an essay which I'm going to apply its perspective to all subsequent German literature we look at in this series. The summary of The Eclipse of Reason is that prior to World War II, the rise of German idealism led to a weakening of religion and reason to question the moral values of a system, and so it left the German public unable to challenge the Nazi rule. Max Horkheimer is claiming that German culture made an oversight in believing in a system where everyone would work in everyone's best intention, and therefore there was no reason to question intentions. But to really understand this book and this project, we need to talk briefly about the intellectual development of Germany prior to World War II. At the Frankfurt School in Germany in the early 1900s, Max Horkheimer founded a new branch of philosophy called critical theory, which actively critiques and challenges society to change for the better, for social good. Because people were skeptical of the development of German idealism in the early 19th century. Simply put, German idealism was a response to the loss of religious values in society following the Enlightenment. German idealism suggested God is not needed in a world with science which can use rationality and empiricism to test claims and find truth. That all knowledge should come from logic and reason applied about what we observe in reality. And this led to knowledge that we now take for granted, that science tells us about the world and we use reason and believe in reason. But it's less obvious that this acceptance of science through German idealism subtly changed our definition of reason throughout the 19th to the early 20th century. There was a shift from objective reason, which suggests that things exist universally for a reason, to subjective reason, that things happen for a reason. It was a shift from using reason to question ends and not means. No longer did it matter what you were looking at in science, but rather whether you were looking at it in the precise way. Methods became more important than the social worth of the results. Science became ideologically blind. And in science today, we talk about the likelihood of something happening by cause and effect, but not the importance of something happening. Science became a tool to predict, but not to judge. Emma also suggested that the rise of subjective reason led to technocracy, and we can see that in the scientists that participated in World War II. The moral indifference of nuclear scientists is a trope by now, and you can see it in the introductory quote to Gravity's Rainbow. The nuclear scientist Werner von Braun says, "Nature does not know extinction, all it knows is transformation." And it's fostered this absent-minded personality in academic scientists, which can be seen in Felix Honecker of Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut, who was modeled on the chemist Irving Langmuir, who worked with Kurt's brother to seed clouds to cause rain and storms with the military. So clearly these scientists were only interested in causing rain, but not whether it would be used in warfare to improve the ability of one side to beat the other. So the take home of all of this is that this shift in reasoning has caused scientists now to only ask how and if they can do something, but not why, which makes them very susceptible to evil rulers who want them to work on something which will be used to terrible, inhumane ends. And it is my prediction in this project that this overemphasis of means not ends, this ideological blindness, will be found in the values espoused by 20th century German literature. So we're going to be looking for this kind of lack of awareness of the actual consequences of actions in German literature, combined with the loss of a belief in social systems like religion or government to control what is good for society. And it is my belief and Horkheimer's claim that the rise of subjective reasoning, which led to people to stop questioning the moral ends of things or the consequences, as well as a growing cynicism for social systems like religion and government, led to civil unrest in pre-war Germany that was responsible for the rise of Nazi Germany. The popularity would not have been possible without people feeling this unsure of what was morally good, and being put in a system where they couldn't challenge it because reason was now only applied to means and not ends. As a brief side note, my experience as a scientist suggests that I think we're going back to objective reason. Since the 1980s, science has greatly shifted its approach into what it sees as important. Research is now focusing on variables such as race, sex, and gender, which allows us to use it for social good rather than objective progress. And the demand and funding for basic science research, which has less of an ideological drive, has decreased, whereas it's increased for clinical science, which is more applied and clearly helps society. As the science now operates on the other end of the spectrum to what we saw before the World Wars, and I think that's altogether quite good. It might slow our progress into finding things, but it ensures that what we find will be good for society. Science has reclaimed its morality, and in this series we're going to see when it didn't have so much of a focus. And also, in modern times, Germany is one of the best suppliers and manufacturers of high-tech science equipment, and I think it's due to this rise of subjective reason in the early 20th century, which made looking at methods, having very precise equipment, was the main goal of science. And I find it very interesting that many good manufacturers of that equipment still is Germany and has been for a long time. So I think it does reflect Germany's aptitude for technical science progress. And that's the start, so it's a bit intellectually deep, but from now on we're going to be staying away from philosophy and looking at fiction and poetry and drama, and it's going to be a lot lighter. But this is definitely the perspective we apply, and I would recommend you read this, but it's pretty tough. It has Plato, Socrates, and then Freud come in, and then Marx come in. You really need to be well read across academic circles to even get your teeth into this. Critical theory is one of the hardest things I've had to read because it combines so many theories at once. So if you want to see how an intellectually challenging text can be used for social good, this is a great essay for you to check out. Happy reading. See you later in the series.